Hey, everybody, Mortisk Media here, and we are back after a couple of months sabbatical. I had to take some personal time to be able to sort some things out, but we are back again with some content flowing. Now, in today's video, we are going to be going over how to be able to model, rig, and animate this robotic spider leg that you see here. Now, it's very simple. There are a few different steps. I'm going to go into some explanations as to, why we're doing certain things a certain way, but just so you can take a look, this is what it looks like. And I apologize for the texturing. I didn't really texture anything appropriately. We are using Eevee, by the way. I'm not using Cycles. I run off of a laptop, so Cycles is a little too heavy for me. But this is what we're going to be making today. As you can see, the geometry of everything flows really nicely. We got these kind of like anchor pieces here. It's got these nice plating. We've got some geometry. So let's show you how to be able to get this all set up, and hopefully you can texture it way better than I did. Alright, so we're loaded up into a new scene in Blender here. We are going to go ahead and delete everything as per the usual process. And then we're going to go Mesh. So Shift A, I'm going to try to make sure I'm seeing as things go along, as I do not have my annotations turned on right now, but that's okay. Alright, so now we got our plane added in, so Shift A, Mesh Plane, and then we're going to go ahead and tab into Edit Mode. And now we're going to, there's two ways you can do this. You can right click, then click on Merge Vertices at Center, or you can press M on your keyboard and press the same option. And then from here, while still in edit mode, not selecting anything else, we're going to go ahead and extrude it up. So now we've got this little line with 2 points. That's all we need, these 2 little points. All right. Now, however, we do need more than 2 points, but this just lets us know that, everything's working properly so far, at least. So we're going to go ahead and with these all selected, make sure they're both selected. And then we're going to go and subdivide it. Now, we want to make sure to increase the level of subdivisions to 2. And then we're also, just because, like you saw in the beginning there, we are making a spider leg. So we want to kind of, these vertices are essentially going to mark the points in which our leg has its bends. So like I kind of want the middle here to be a little longer than the rest of it, while this little tip section is a little shorter by the rest of the comparison of the leg. Yeah, that looks pretty good. All right, and now we're going to go ahead and get out of edit mode, and we're going to go to the modifiers section. So it's a little wrench icon here, and we're going to click on add modifier, and then we're going to add a skin modifier under the generate section. So go ahead and add that in. As you can see, we have what looks like an elongated cube, or a very tall cube, however you want to look at it. But there is a bit of a difference here. So with a cube, you would have a bunch of faces. With this, we only have vertices. We have, I believe we should have 4 vertex in total, if I did this properly. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we got 2 in the middle, and then our 2 endpoints. But there's no faces. If I go into face select mode, and I try to do like that box select, it's not going to select. There's no faces. This is not a mesh. So it's one thing to keep in mind. We are going to be turning it into a mesh, but right now, it's not a mesh. All right, so now we're going to hit 1 to go back into vertex selection. And then we're going to go ahead and select the top one here. And we're going to go Control A. And we're going to try and just give that a nice little point. Something like that. That looks good. All right, then we're going to go Control A on this next point here. I'm going to kind of scale that up a little bit. And then the next one, scale it down just a tad. And then on the next one, scale it up a little bit, just to kind of give it some, nice, interesting geometry to it. All right, then we're going to go back into viewport shading here, and we have the start of our leg. Look at that. Beautiful. All right, so one thing to point out is if you're looking on the modifiers section here, you're going to see an option that says Create Armature. Now, if you're following along for this video, we're not going to click this. This is not going to be something we are going to use, because we're actually going to make the armature ourselves. But if you want to, you can select this. The only problem with using the Create Armature thing is that it limits you on certain things. When you convert it to a mesh, the armature can get a little messed up. If you export it as an FBX and try to load it into another .blend file scene, you're going to have some issues with the way that the skin modifier and the armature from that modifier loads in. So what we're not going to be messing with this. If you want to, and you are happy with just this shape, and you want to create an armature, go ahead. Because then from here, you've got the ability to move it. You know, you've got fully workable. But as you can see, it kind of bends and warps and changes the like the middle sections there, and I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I like it to be more separated. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to select our object, tab into edit mode, and just make sure everything looks good. All right. All right, and go back into object mode, and then we're going to right click on the mesh, convert to, and mesh. Now if we go back into edit mode, you can see we've got faces now. So if I go into face selection mode, which is shortcut 3 on your keyboard, not the numpad, the top section. It might be on the top pad section too. I actually don't know. I'll actually know, because that's how you control your camera movement. Duh. But as you can see, we have some really nice faces, and it's all following the geometry that we set with the single vertex line that we had before. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and select everything before each bend. So we're going to select this piece and the bottom section. Don't forget the bottom section. All right, and then you can do this one of two ways. First way is to right click, and then you can click on or then go down to separate, and then click on by selection, or you can just hit P on your keyboard and by selection. And then boom, now we have this little section here, which is separate from the rest of our mesh. So we're going to do this for the other two sections here. We're going to go and select all of these. Bam, and then hit P by selection. And now once you get up to this top piece here, you can just select anything and then A on your keyboard, and it will select all the remaining points for you. So then just hit P by selection. And now if we go back into object mode, you'll see we have 3 separate pieces. Now I'm sure as you're noticing though, these pieces do not have bottoms. That's kind of a problem. So we're going to go ahead and fix that. We're going to start with the bottom piece here. So what you want to do is select this piece here, go into tab into edit mode, and then you want to make sure that you are in edge selection, which is this up here. You can also press 2 on your keyboard, and this will bring you into edge selection mode. And then hold Alt, and then left click on any of the top edges here. And then if you press F on your keyboard, bam, fills. And now we've got a full mesh top to bottom. All right. So now let's go ahead and just do that to the rest of them here. We're going to tab in, go into our next one, tab into edit mode, Alt left click, and then F, bam. Then once again, tab into edit mode, Alt click, F, bam. All right, so now we have the start. Oh, forgot the top section here. Let's get that one set up. All right, so now we have the start of our 3 leg pieces. So what we're going to do, we're going to go into the transform properties, and we're going to zero all these out. Now, because we only moved along the y-axis, and even if you move it anywhere else, 0 is going to be the lineup because you started from this position. Just because you separated it, it's not going to change anything. This is 0 for the z-axis, even though 0 for the z-axis is, you know, if you're all the way down, it's kind of like right there, but because if it's relative position to where it started, this is Z. So this is a great way to get you back always to where you started from whenever you're kind of doing some modeling or mesh work or anything like that. All right, so now that we have our 3 pieces of our mesh, we need to get it ready for some modeling to give it some geometric design to it. So first thing we're going to do is we want to go here, and then we're just going to select, we're going to select everything, and then we're going to subdivide it. And we're going to give it 2 subdivisions. All right, then we're going to do the same thing here. Boom, A, subdivide, and we're going to get a subdivision of 2. Actually, this one will give a subdivision of 3. The main thing is you want to make sure that you have faces that are not on the edge and that are on the inside like this. And this is just going to help you to create some really cool geometric shape within the actual mesh itself. So that's really the reason why you do that. And we'll go one more on that one because I like that. And then we'll just do that same thing here. Sometimes it's better just to add extra subdivisions because you never know what you might want. So having some extra faces to be able to work off of can sometimes actually work more in your favor. All right, so now we'll go ahead and start working on giving it some kind of armor plating. So we'll work on the bottom one here. We'll start with this one. And then what I like to do is generally start off on like from one in from each edge. All right, so then we're gonna go boom. So how I'm doing that is that line I just created is if you click on any face, you can do this in like edge selection mode and vertex selection mode. I just like to work in face mode or face selection mode, face mode, whatever. But then if you hold control and then left click, it'll create the shortest path. Actually, it even says pick shortest path. And you can mess with these. I don't ever mess with those. I'm sure there's some cool stuff you can do with it if you know how to mess with it. But for me, all I need... And now I'm just holding control and then clicking each point. And then it picks the shortest path. Bam. All right, so now that we've got everything except for our edges of our mesh selected, we're going to go ahead and hit E to extrude. And we're going to bring it out somewhere like this. Now this is going to create the separation between your leg and your plating material. This is the first extrusion. You're going to do 2 extrusions on this, and this is just to help you with your geometry. Or your mesh's geometry, I should say. It's not going to help you with your geometry homework, though, I'm sorry to say. So if you take this and then extrude it out a little bit, I like to go a little thinner, kind of like that. I like that. That looks good. All right, and then we're going to select an edge there, and then we're going to do the control left click to be able to get this section here only. And then we're going to shift left click on the other side here to be able to make it so that way this stays and allows us to select this next section. All right, and then with that one selected, we're going to control left click and get that edge too. So now what I like to do is hit E to extrude, and then S, and then Y, and this just makes it extrude along the normals a little bit better. I like to get it about halfway in between this edge and this edge. And I'll show you why. Because now, to give it just a little bit more depth to it, we're going to highlight all of these using the control and shift click tricks, and then we're going to subdivide them both. Now as you see, it kind of hangs over the edge a little bit, which is good. We don't want it to be matching up with the edge of here, because if it does, it's going to clip into it, whereas now it should hug it nice and tight. And then bam, we have the start of our armor plating. And this is what you're going to do to be able to create the base plate for all of your legs. Now you can also create objects and parent them to them, but realistically, whenever you're working with armatures, especially with the way that we're going to be doing them today, it's realistically better, if you can, to work with it this way. And it's only because when you parent objects, if you click the wrong thing, you know, keep transform or object offset, whatever the case may be, if you click the wrong thing, the whole animation, the way everything works is going to get messed up. So to avoid that, I like to just do this type of a workflow. It just makes it easier, make it all one mesh, or for the most part, at least what is not going to be controlled by the armature itself, because all of these pieces are going to be parented to an armature once we're done modeling. This video, we're mainly just modeling, and I'm showing you some tips and tricks to be able to get some really cool kind of geometric shapes and patterns to it. I'm going to E to extrude SY. There we go. Oh, that actually lined up pretty good. Cool. All right, then we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to select all of these edges here and then subdivide them and then do that again. Oops, I was pressing shift, not control. There we go. And do that again. This one might be a little too tight. I might have to do another subdivision. Yeah, it's a little too tight. Okay, that's fine. I do this a lot. Sometimes you can't get the line up perfectly, and I am trying to do this a little quicker. Normally I'm a little bit more precise with the placements of everything, but I don't want to take 20 minutes just trying to line things up because I know you guys want to get on with the video. So we're going to go ahead and Just extrude that out to like there, like so, and beautiful. So now we got that one done. The thing is, we want to try and keep the spacing somewhat similar, even if the plating thickness isn't the same, like this piece is thicker than this piece. It's not really that big of a deal. People aren't really going to see that. I mean, I will say that like when I'm doing this and I'm doing it for a project, I'm generally a perfectionist. So I will say that I'm probably being a hypocrite right now by telling you, don't worry about that. It's okay. No one's going to notice it, because when I'm doing projects, I'm always like, somebody's going to notice that. Everyone's going to notice that. It's an imperfection. And yes, I know they say that imperfection is the digital perfection, but I think that in some cases people can take that a little too far. You know, that's just my humble opinion. Alright, so there we go. We got our 2 extrusions. Actually, that's a little too much on the plating. So I don't like the leg plating, the tip of the leg plating at least, to be super thick. I feel like generally, like if you're plating something at this point, like you want it to try and match a little bit. Alright, and then we're gonna try and cut it there. That did not work out the way I was hoping. It's a little better. I will say this part can definitely be a process. There's been times where I've taken this one step that I'm doing right now, especially on this last leg because of the way that the geometry is set up. There's definitely some times you're going to run into some issues of like things just not lining up properly. So adding in some extra subdivisions I've found to kind of be the trick. And again, isn't it always, right? Alright, so we're going to do the same thing. Take it and extrude it. As you can see, we're going to go a little lighter on how far it goes, just because we don't want it to overlap our tip there. Beautiful. So now, if we take our leg here, we zero out the Y, zero out the Y. Now we've got some really kind of interesting plating geometry kind of happening here. Still looks, you know, there's still a little bit of work to be done, but it's starting to look like something we could be proud of. All right, so now we need to create some connection points for these, because if you're creating a robot or you're creating anything, you know, these legs need to look like they're supposed to be connected to each other. And what I like to do is take it from the bottom. Yes, I know there's the orthographic view, but, you know, I feel like making things just more difficult for myself, because why not? Alright, so, and this is why the subdivisions doing this early is important, because if you start messing with this mesh, sometimes it actually won't let you subdivide this section. I haven't quite figured out why, but that was something I've had to remake this video a couple of times after realizing that I couldn't do it in that order. So definitely make sure to do your subdivisions before you start doing any of the modeling for it. And then, but with these selected, we're going to go ahead and extrude it down right about there. Looks good. And then we're just going to scale it, so that way it kind of gives like that little point there. So then now, if we take it and zero it out, oh, I zeroed it out on the wrong in edit mode. There we go. All right, then we zero this out. Now you can see there's a kind of like connection point there. And when you're animating, I'm telling you, it makes all the difference. Now, one thing you can do as well, I'm just going to Control Z back here, is one thing that I do sometimes as well whenever I'm making these types of robotic legs or anything like that is, if you're ever finding yourself having an issue with the way that the animations line up, like when all of these legs work together, I've found that it can sometimes be beneficial to create the connection points from the middle leg rather than from the leg, like each individual leg. So like if I take this, zero out on the Y, zero out on the Y, it looks the exact same. You can't really tell that, you know, I mean, yes, it's going up instead of down, but you're going to notice that the way this operates with it is going to work a little bit better when you're actually animating. All right, so let's get this back over here on the y-axis, and we'll do the same thing here. Where we'll take, oh, we don't want those. Actually, no, we did want those. We didn't want, yep, this is what happens. This is what happens when you don't get enough coffee in the morning. That's what I'm telling you. Alright, so then we'll take it and we'll kind of bring it down. Actually want to bring that out a little farther. Right there. And always, what I found too is that if you make it a direct, like a tip, like a sharp point, it's not going to look right. Always give it some flatness. This gives the animation something to kind of work with. If it's pointed, it's going to end up showing up when it's all animated. But there we go. So we got the start of our spider leg. So I'm going to show you some quick tricks for helping with the geometry of it. And then in the next video, we're going to work on rigging the actual leg and making it into a workable animation. So I'm going to show you some quick tricks for getting some cool geometry. Now this is where the subdivision early on really does come into play. So I'm just holding down control and then just going around the edge, one in on each one. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to extrude. Actually, I'm going to extrude this in. And then I'm going to take every diagonal point. So for this, I just hold shift and I start kind of like here and then just go down. You can also, if you want, you can just press C and then just click on each phase. So it's left click to select, middle mouse button to be able to deselect, for those of you who have not messed around too much with the selection system. But yeah, so we're just going to select it in kind of like a zigzag pattern here. You know, nothing too crazy. Bam. Alright, so then we'll take this and we'll extrude it up just like that, just to kind of give it some cool edging, you know. And then bam, so that gives us some cool kind of front texture there. And then you can also do things like this, which are really cool. So if we do in edit mode, hit Control R, this will bring up the loop cut section, and then put in 2 loop cuts and then try to get them pretty centered. Sometimes they can be a little off center, and then after you snap them into place, Control B, this creates a bevel, and then create like a nice little bevel like that, something like that. Because then we're going to go E, extrude along the y-axis, and that'll push those in kind of like that, giving it some more edging to it. Because then we can do the same thing here, Control R, 2 loop cuts, drag them back just a notch, then Control B to bevel, scale them until it feels right. Right about there looks good. Then E and Y. Bam. So yeah, it looks a little weird on the line up here, but honestly, I kind of like it. It gives it almost like a better geometrical vibe when it's actually all working together. And obviously, because of the fact there's no textures, there's like no lighting realistically, like you can't really see much of anything. But after you add like a metal texture, do some like Voronoi or wave textures or noise texture or something on it, all of these are going to pop up. Like we'll go ahead and add in something really quick. We'll go ahead and just shade that down. We'll turn it metallic and we'll turn the roughness down to right about there. So that if I go into here, we'll go Shift A, we'll add in a point. Actually, we'll add in an area light. Alright, then we'll just bring this to like right there, and then drag it up and forward. I will say lighting is probably one of my least favorite things to do. We'll move this up to 150. 500. There you go. So then you can really see, based off of the lighting, like it's super exposed right now. But you get some really cool kind of geometrical look to the leg here. And this is the bottom, or I mean, this is the middle of the leg. So if we go ahead and just kind of snap it back into place, that's what it's going to look like. You can always make it a different, make this section a different material as well. You can do a lot when it comes to how this all really works out for you. But I hope you enjoy this little tutorial, and we're going to be, like I said, working on rigging and animating this leg in the next video. So I hope you enjoyed. Hit that like and subscribe button, and stay animated.